Welcome in, listener. You're listening to a segment from the Slumpbuster podcast with Ju-Ju and Dre. Find the full episode on Spotify, iTunes, the Google Play Store, or our YouTube channel. Enjoy. We talked about the NCAA to death when it came to the California legislation last week, but the NCAA is back in the headlines with a very kind of underreported story right now with the Kansas Jayhawks athletic program. So the NCAA handed out a couple of sanctions against the Jayhawks, charging them with failure of institutional control, which is a very serious violation in the NCAA. They've mentioned a couple bribery scandals with a couple of the Jayhawks' top players, and all relates back to this big contract they have with Adidas. So Adidas basically paid them a multi-million-dollar 14-year deal, and Bill Self kind of has a bit of a relation to them. And out of nowhere, players like Billy Preston managed to get $90,000, or I should say Billy Preston's mother, Dennis Smith Jr., who's a former Kansas Jayhawk himself. His handler wound up with $40,000. So there's something going on over there, and it's going to be interesting to see what the NCAA does with it. So the average case takes about 9 months to process. It's going to be interesting to see where they set that timeline. If they started investigating them a few months ago, did they say this 9-month process is already taking effect? A lot of the pundits that I've kind of heard talk about this subject so far have mentioned ultimately it's unlikely to affect Kansas this season. So obviously you're very pro pay the player. You mentioned that last week when we were talking about the NCAA. Is this kind of bringing out another hole in the NCAA when we talk about these underground scandals like this?
I think so. I think this just gives more ammo to the new California law and legislation in that, hey, if these players are going to be getting this type of money, right, like we might as well make it fair and equitable by having one overarching law where anybody can get paid, right, regardless of what school you're at, regardless of whether it's Adidas or Nike, and then it's at least a level playing field, right? Dennis Smith Jr., he was able to get that much money just because he was one of the best guys on Kansas and nobody else is getting $40,000. Well, his parents or handler, whoever it was, is getting the $40,000, right? And so I think California is on the right track, and they can point to this that, hey, this is what you have going on, and it's more unfair now because you have only a few guys that get paid, whereas, hey, everybody can get paid. It levels the playing ground. So I am definitely pro paying the players. I don't agree with, the underground stuff that's going on, though. I do want to make that clear.
Yeah, so with that said, in terms of the Kansas basketball program or even just their athletic programs as a whole, the worry for a lot of their players, staff, etc. So Bill Self, who's one of the more highly regarded coaches in the league, he's at risk of being suspended if he's found guilty under these sanctions, which is interesting because I've kind of hear Bill Self might have an out. So he kind of has a relationship with Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich obviously coming towards the end of his rope. Bill Self's record at Kansas, so he's been there for quite a while now. He has 473 wins to only 106 losses. He's won 14 straight Big 12 titles, and he's a former champion. So he's accomplished pretty much everything he needs to do at the college level. Maybe it's time that he does do a Billy Donovan or a Brad Stevens and just eventually moves on to the NBA, especially because when you look at these sanctions in the past, look at what happened with Pete Carroll as soon as USC started getting hit with sanctions. Hey, USC, bye. I think the same kind of thing can happen with Bill Self. What do you think about Bill Self to the NBA?
I sort of like that move, especially I think it's hard when you're starting to have, NCAA sanctions and your name sort of gets tied to NCAA scandals. It's hard to move within the NCAA organization, right? Like it'd be very difficult for him just to pick up and, maybe go to a UCLA or to just go to whatever, another school is. I mean, if we look at Rick Pitino, right, with Louisville, they got caught in a bunch of scandals, and Pitino's no longer coaching at Louisville or in the NCAA in general. And so I think really like maybe his only option is to move up to the NBA, which for him, I think that's an upgrade. You're coaching at the pro level. I'm sure that the pros are different from the college level, so I think there might be a learning curve there. But if you have Greg Popovich, right, as one of your mentors, I think he would do just fine.
Yeah, and the thing about you mentioned too, like what more could he really have left at Kansas? Would he just need to move on from there if they are found guilty? That's true, because if they are found guilty, it's going to hit them in recruiting. No one's going to want to go to a school that can't go to the postseason, because at minimum, if they do get caught on this stuff, they're probably going to miss the following year's playoffs, which March Madness is one of the biggest cash cows in sports. When you miss those tournaments, believe me, it affects your school. It impacts kind of your legacy. And Kansas is regarded as one of the highly touted programs in college basketball. So it could affect them for quite a while. It'd be hard to move past that.
Yeah, and you never know what administrations are thinking, right? Is the school administration, they have sort of conflicting interests when it comes to both balancing out their athletics as well as their academics and their overall reputation. And so the school themselves, to protect their reputation as, a research institution and sort of their all-around reputation, they might say, hey, we have to move off Bill Self anyways, right? Just to show that we actually care about being a reputable organization as a whole. Mm-hmm. And I don't know all of the politics that come in with administration of college, but I'm sure that would also play a little bit of a role.
Other things that might happen to Kansas, they might have to vacate last year's Big 12 title. They probably have to vacate some of the wins that they benefited from some of the players receiving bribes. I don't really think that matters too much in today's day and age where everyone has access to a cell phone. We all saw the wins. Did we really care when Reggie Bush lost his Heisman? No, we knew he was the best player in college that year. Did we really care when Jim Boeheim got all those wins scratched off his record? No, because we know how great of a coach Boeheim has been over the last few decades. That's kind of a hollow thread anytime the NCAA does it.